Mr. President.
The release of the intel report will mark a new chapter in relations between Washington and Riyadh after the administration of President Donald Trump largely tried to shield the Crown Prince from any accountability for a murder that was widely condemned by others.
We remain committed to releasing through the DNI, of course, an unclassified report that we expect to happen soon. I don't have an updated timeline for you on that. I know there were also reports on a proposed call. We also expect that to happen soon. We're still in the process of scheduling when that will happen.
The 59-year-old Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist who had been critical of the Saudi government at the time of his death, was killed by a team of Saudi intelligence officers with close ties to the Crown Prince, his body dismembered and his remains never found. The Saudi government first denied involvement, but 8 men were later convicted at trial. 5 got the death penalty that was later commuted to 20 years in prison after they were reportedly forgiven by the Khashoggi family. A 2019 report by the independent UN expert on extrajudicial killings laid blame firmly with the state of Saudi Arabia, but could not find evidence on whose order the killing took place.
The first important message I think my report highlights is the fact that the execution of Mr. Khashoggi was the responsibility of the state of Saudi Arabia. The focus has been on who has ordered the killing. I do not have evidence regarding who has ordered the killing. What I do have is evidence suggesting that the responsibilities of high-level officials may be engaged and therefore is requiring further investigation, in particular of the Crown Prince, for a variety of reasons. The first one is that the people directly implicated in the murder reported to him.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
President Biden was expected to speak with Saudi King Salman before the release of the report as the U.S. posture towards the kingdom shifts.
When I talked about recalibration, I was referring to, of course, the counterpart to counterpart, because that was kind of how the question was posed. But, you know, we always look, the president is taking a fresh approach to how he engages with foreign leaders around the world, and different from the prior administration. And that means he will not hold back, and he will speak out when there are concerns he has about human rights abuses, about the lack of freedom of speech or the lack of freedom of media and expression, or any concerns he has. At the same time, we have a long relationship with Saudi Arabia. They are being attacked in the region, and that is certainly an area where we continue to work with them on.
The declassified report expected to complicate relations with a key Middle Eastern ally, with expectations that CIA conclusions will point a finger directly at the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
And Sherwin joins us now. Sherwin, thank you for that report. Does this make an open secret? Because it has been known, the Crown Prince's involvement, given reporting on the CIA's conclusions earlier. Does it make it not so secret anymore?
Jamal Khashoggi was killed in October 2018, and by November the 13th of the same year, Francis, various reports, among them from the Washington Post, quoting CIA officials, anonymous CIA officials, that they had drawn a conclusion that the Crown Prince approved and likely ordered the killing. This was in November 2018, just over a month after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi in that Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. This, of course, contradicted Saudi government claims at the time that they were not involved. The CIA assessment at the time, according to the Washington Post in 2018, Francis, said that officials had a high confidence, which in Intel Intel language speaks to, we think this is very, very credible. In addition to that, in June of 2019, an independent report released by Agnes Calabard, at the time, or still is, the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial summary and arbitrary killings, basically pointing the finger at the Saudi government. This is another clip of her speaking at that time. Watch.
The execution of Mr. Khashoggi was a state execution. It is not, as they try to pretend, a rogue operation or a mistake. It's a state killing. And as such, it is important that the state of Saudi Arabia be held accountable. So far, there has been no move on the part of the international community to treat the execution of Mr. Khashoggi as something that was sponsored, incited, ordered by the state.
Francis Calamar's report at the time cited 6 violations of international law. I'll read you 3 of them. The prohibition against arbitrary deprivation of life, a fundamental principle of international law. The requirement that states use consular missions for official purposes. Obviously, the dismemberment of a Saudi citizen is not an official purpose. And the killing of a journalist, in the killing of a journalist, the state of Saudi Arabia committed an act inconsistent with the core tenets of the United Nations, Francis.
Well, Sherwin, the previous administration of President Donald Trump, despite having this intelligence you talk about, was unwilling to take a firm hand against the Crown Prince. What was the justification at the time?
I think historical context is also very important here. You'll recall, or maybe not, that Donald Trump, as president, made his first official trip abroad to the Middle East, and no less to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that's some historical context of the close relationship he sought with the crown in Saudi Arabia. Trump, of course, rejected demands at the time, Francis, for a release of the declassified version of that intel report. He said at the time that this was a horrible thing that happened, that he was unhappy with how events unfolded, but also denied at the time the CIA assessment that linked bin Salman to the execution of Khashoggi. This was the president, in his own words, around that time.
There's a lot of things happening. At the same time, I will also say, and nobody so far has pointed directly a finger at the future king of Saudi Arabia. I will say, I spoke to his father, Jim, I spoke to his father at great length. They've been a terrific ally. They're creating millions of jobs in this country. They're ordering equipment, not only military equipment, but $400 billion worth of, and actually even more than that over a period of time, worth of different things. And with that being said, I'm extremely angry and unhappy about a thing like that taking place.
The former president, Donald Trump, there in his own words, and they're sort of deferring to the financial implications in terms of that relationship with Saudi Arabia, really superseding perhaps some of the human rights concerns that might have been prevalent in the U.S. government at the time.
And he calls Saudi Arabia an ally. In your insert, you said this makes things complicated. Just tell us more about the implications here for the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the U.S.
Well, the former president there making mention of the $400 billion worth in arms sales that go between Riyadh and Washington. Of course, there could be some financial implications moving forward in terms of the arms relationship with the United States. We understand that there has been a temporary freeze already placed by the Biden administration as it reviews the relationship, Francis. But I guess the question is, how do you hold a crown prince of Saudi Arabia accountable, right? Saudi Arabia is not a member of the International Criminal Court. Neither is Turkey, where this crime took place. The only other way to then refer a state or an issue to the ICC is through an action of the Security Council. But then again, this is not a threat to international peace and security. So the only way to hold a crown prince accountable would be for the judiciary within Saudi Arabia to do so. But at the end of the day, the crown is the highest appellate body in that country in terms of the judiciary. So it does not really seem clear how, if the CIA confirms our suspicions here, that Mohammed bin Salman will in fact be held judicially accountable for his actions here.
Well, we'll watch that closely. Sherwin, before we let you go on a completely different tack, we'll be turning our attention to vaccinations in Africa, in the world, and the United States has seen this horrific COVID-19 fallout, but apparently heading towards a milestone in terms of vaccinations.
Yeah, numbers are an interesting thing, Francis. So the Biden-Harris administration due this afternoon at the White House to announce some 50 million doses of vaccinations that have taken place under their watch. So essentially, since Biden was sworn into office in late January, we understand that the total number is reaching about 14% of the U.S. population that has now been vaccinated. But of course, we need to get to herd immunity here and around the world. That's a 70% threshold, and so very much a long way to go. Of course, we are expecting Johnson & Johnson to win emergency use authorization later this week. So another 2 to 3 million vaccinations could go out to states by early next week. But we are still a very long way away from the herd immunity that is required for us really to get to some sort of normal as we lived our lives pre-COVID in the year 2019, Francis.
Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you so much, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, our correspondent in New York.